This is episode 12. In the previous episode, we had covered verses 11 to 16 of chapter 2, and today we will be covering verses 17 to 24, a total of 8 verses of this chapter. As I had mentioned, in verses 11 to 30 of chapter 2, God talks about Dehina, or the immortal and eternal soul. So today will be a continuation of this discussion. I will start off with the literal translations first, and then we will talk about a few interesting things. Starting off with verse 2.17. Avinashi tu tat vidhi yen sarvam idam tatam vinasham avivasya asya na kashchit kartum arhati. God says, that which pervades the entire body, know it to be indestructible. No one can cause the destruction of this imperishable, and no one can annihilate this unchangeable. No one has the power to bring about the destruction of this unchangeable. Now moving to verse 2.18, which goes as Antvant ime deha nityasya yokta sharirina anashina aprameyasya tasmat yudhyasva bharata. God is saying only the material body is perishable. The embodied soul within it is indestructible, immeasurable and eternal. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharat, which is a name for Arjun. Then verse 2.19 is Ya enam veti hantaram yascha enam manyate hatam ubhav tau na vijanito na ayam hanti na hanyate. This is an extremely important verse where God is saying neither of them is in knowledge. The one who thinks the soul can slay and the one who thinks the soul can be slain. For truly the soul neither kills nor can it be killed. That was verse 19. And then verse 20 is Na jayate mriyate va kadachit na ayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajo nityam shashvato ayam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. God is saying the soul is neither born nor does it ever die, nor having once existed does it ever cease to be. The soul is birthless, eternal, immortal and ageless, and it is not destroyed even when the body is destroyed. So that was verse 20, and verse 21 is Veda avinashinam nityam yah enam ajam avyayam katham sa purusha parth kam ghatyati hanti kam. God says, O Parth, how can one who knows the soul to be imperishable, eternal, unborn and immutable ever believe that it can kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? That was verse 21. And then verse 22 is Vasansi jirnani yatha vihai navani granati naro aparani tatha sharirani vihai jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. This is a very famous verse and gets quoted lots of times. Here God is saying, as a person sheds worn out garments and wears new ones, likewise the soul casts off its worn out body and enters into another. Then verse 23 again is a very well celebrated verse and is quoted in many places. It is Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavaka na cha enam kledyanti yapo na shoshati maruta. This translates into weapons cannot shred it, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it, nor can the wind dry it. And then moving on to verse 24. Achedya ayam adahya ayam akledya ashoshya evacha nitya sarvgata sthanu achala ayam sanatana. This translates into it is uncleavable and incombustible. It can neither be dampened nor dried. It is everlasting, in all places, unalterable, immutable and eternal. So these are the characteristics of the Dehina or the embodied soul. With this, we have now covered verses 2.17 to 2.24. As you would have noticed, God started off by talking about the soul, and in these verses, he uses multiple words to describe the characteristics of the soul, such as all-permeating, unborn, undying, imperishable, everlasting, eternal, undiminishing, immeasurable, unchangeable, immutable, ever calm, immovable, uncleavable, unwettable, undryable, incombustible, and unkillable. God uses all of these words to describe the soul. And I find all of these words very amazing. An interesting observation is that he uses these words while talking about the soul. But for a minute, if we were to just step back and ask ourselves, who should these words be actually used for? Well, the answer is for God Himself. All these words, such as unborn, undying, imperishable, everlasting, eternal, undiminishing, immeasurable, unchangeable, immutable, ever calm, immovable, uncleavable, unwettable, can't be tried, can't be burnt, and can't be killed, are words that describe God. Hence, while describing the soul, God is using the vocabulary that is actually used to describe Him. Though God doesn't talk about Himself anywhere in these verses or in entire chapter 2. He does that in chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Here, He only talks about the soul, but uses the words that are used to describe Him as well. God also says, a part of me is in the soul. And hence the soul is the same as God or is a shadow or image of God. The proof of it is using the adjectives for soul without referring to Himself. And I find this very amazing, that these words are being used for the soul. God doesn't say this is me, and yet the words are the same to describe Him. Whenever I think about this, I instantly remember the famous doha of Sant Kabir Das. Moko kahan dhoonde re bande, main to tere paas mein. Kabir was a weaver, a julaha, and found God through Karma Yoga. His words are hard-hitting as they talk about the eternal truth. And hence he says, Moko kahan dhoonde re bande, main to tere paas mein, which means, where are you trying to find me? I'm right here with you. So this reminds me of this doha. Now there is one more interesting thing, and we will revisit this in chapter 8, 9 and 10. And that is that God is the source and origin as He created everything. And He created both being and non-beings, which are spread everywhere. That is sarvam idam tatam. He is imbibed in every soul, or the soul is a reflection of God. He also plays in the creation because He says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam. And yet He is not the creation. This is His creation. He is in every being. He can also participate in its actions. And He could also be observing every creation do what they please to do with their free will. In our daily life, one question always arises, which is, are you on the balcony or are you on the dance floor? This means, are you watching from the sidelines or are you actually taking action? God has created the balcony, the dance floor, its air, as well as people who are on the dance floor. He's also on the dance floor and at the same time sitting and watching from the balcony as well. This is an amazing description and I find it really fascinating. I'm just sharing my fascination. It is also important to talk about verse 2.22, which says, Vasansi jirnani yatha vihai navani granati naro aparani tatha sharirani vihai jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. During the translation of this verse, a point is repeatedly raised, which is, does this verse talk about reincarnation? That is, the soul passes on from one body to another upon death. Paramahansa Yoganand interprets this as reincarnation. And he says that the spirit or soul don't die with the body as it is eternal. Also, the soul doesn't lose its identity on death. It passes from one body to another and the karma of the soul remains with it. And this karma is carried forward to new births. He further states that upon accumulating many positive karmas from multiple births, the soul finally merges into God. I find it very difficult to follow this logic, and therefore my interpretation is different. I believe that just as we forego old clothes and buy new ones, similarly, the soul changes the body, but this is not an assembly line production. For example, a new wave on the ocean can be formed once the old wave gets dismantled upon hitting the shores. But it is not necessary that it will happen immediately. In fact, the new soul is not a carryover of the old soul, just as the new wave is not a carryover of the old wave. It's a new wave in entirety. So my view is that upon death, the soul merges into God and it doesn't remain in existence at all as a separate thing. It is part of God. Or the new soul, the new drop or the new wave gets created from the all-permeating or all-pervading God. This is my interpretation and this is what I say and I would like to believe. But I've always mentioned that I will be telling you what Paramahansa Yogananda said, and that's what I have done in this version as well. This debate on whether the spirit loses its identity on death and merges with God and carries the karma with it across multiple births, or whether it loses its identity and becomes one with God and doesn't carry forward any karma into future births, is a fair debate to do. And we will continue with it in further episodes of this version of the Gita. Thank you.